Welcome everybody to Lunch and Learn Live here in Facebook land in the festive season. We've got the fa-la-la-la-las above there. If I go over here, I've got my Christmas hat on and another right there. It's a very festive time of year and I'm very excited about today's Lunch and Learn Live because we have a fabulous guest with us. One of many mentors. Catherine Morgan is going to be joining us very soon today. We're going to be talking about all things financial challenges and financial stresses and financial opportunities in the crazy time of year and beyond and in life in general, which is going to be a lot of fun. We have a few things that we need to do first. First of all, I need to say hello to you. So as you arrive, please make sure that you've given Ecamm permission to see who you are, which makes it so much easier for me to interact with you. But do let me know where in the world you are and what's for lunch. What's for lunch on our Lunch and Learn Live today? So I am in the Cotswolds, as I always am, in this house for the last time. Because in 2 days from today, I will be in a completely different location. I will be in my new house, about 10 minutes that way. And I'm pretty excited because up until last night, my walls were kind of an orangey color like that in my kitchen. The greatest stress I had about moving into this house was how was I going to cope with an orange kitchen until we had all of the interior design plans for the walls we wanted to kick down and the kitchen redo. And could I tolerate the walls for that long? We decided no, and today the walls are a tolerable color until we're able to actually get around to the renovation. So I'm very happy about that. And now I'm very excited to be moving into my unrenovated house because at least the walls are not offensive. But it's crazy times here because we're moving in 2 days, which I'm really nervous about. I can tell that there's lots of you there and I can hear you saying things, but why can I not see? Why can I not see them? Maybe, hang on 2 secs. Perhaps I've accidentally closed the chat box here. Why can't I see what you're saying, ladies? Overlays, there we go. There you are. No, that's not it. Options, window. There we go. Comments and reactions. There you are. I could hear you clicking and saying things, but I couldn't see you. How ridiculous. There we are. I can see you now. Hooray. So Patricia is there. Hello, my darling. Good to see you. Hello, Perrin. Lovely to see you all. Patricia says, it's always after lunch when I watch you, so I'm having me for lunch. I like it. Have me for lunch, my darling. That's great. Patricia says, I love orange. I am Dutch. I love orange. Well, you would have loved the colour of my kitchen. It was too much for my poor brain, though, to handle. Bonjour, Valérie in Normandy. Good to see you, my love. Welcome, everybody who's joining us live. You're going to love today. Absolutely love today. But before we jump in and I introduce you to the wonderful Catherine Morgan in just a few short moments, we have one order of business from a couple of weeks ago. You'll remember a couple of weeks ago I was live here with you and it was Giving Tuesday, that most fabulous of Tuesdays, which happens after Spend All Your Money Black Friday, spend even more money on Cyber Monday. How about change the world with your money on Giving Tuesday? And at the Hunger Project, we set ourselves a target to raise £5,000 on Giving Tuesday. And I have to say, I don't have the actual number with me, but I know that from that campaign and the Work for Good campaign that we did a couple of days later, we absolutely blasted our targets out of the water. And we have made a massive difference in terms of taking some steps towards ending world hunger as a result of your incredible contributions to that initiative on Giving Tuesday. So I want to say a massive thank you to every single one of many women that contributed to the Hunger Project fundraising campaign a couple of weeks back. Keep it coming. There is no reason whatsoever to stop now. We're doing some amazing stuff and the impact is huge. I'm really, really proud of the work that we're doing here in the UK and with our partner countries. It's amazing. So thank you. And thank you for helping us not just achieve, but exceed our targets, which is super exciting. And I incentivized you a little bit, didn't I? One of you, I said, was going to win a one-on-one coaching session with me. And for every £30 you contributed to our fundraising efforts on Giving Tuesday, you would get one entry into the hat. So last week, was it a hat? We did use your woolen beanie, didn't we? We got Tracy, my assistant's woolen beanie, and we put all of the entries in there. And some of you did indeed contribute more than £30, and a massive thank you to all of you who did. We've got all of your entries in there. And the lovely Tracy drew out our winner. And the winner, I'm so excited to see that you're here as well, was the lovely Perrin Anderson. Congratulations, Perrin! I love it. I love it. A few extra, stacking the deck in your favor with those contributions. Multiple entries from Perrin. From me, my heart to yours, a massive thank you for your incredibly generous contribution, Perrin, towards the Hunger Project. To all of you who made a contribution, I know, Patricia, you did, and you're here as well. I can't remember the names of everybody who did, but a couple there that I absolutely recognize. And thank you. Massive, massive thank you. And Perrin, Tracy will reach out and organize our one-on-one session. And I'm here to support you with whatever I can support you with as you start your 2022. So fantastic. And thank you again. So with our celebrations out of the way, well, kind of out of the way, we've got more celebrations on the horizon with the festive season. Let us go into another celebration, and that is the fact that the lovely Catherine Morgan is joining us today. So if you have not yet met Catherine, you're in for a treat. She is a multi-award winning financial planner and award-winning financial coach. She's on a mission to reduce financial stress and anxiety and increase financial empowerment around the world, wanting to support 1 million women into becoming empowered around their finances. She's really the top of her game. She's been featured as one of the top 32 female entrepreneurs to look out for in Business Leader. She's host of a top 1% global podcast, so you can check her out at In Her Financial Shoes. It's a great podcast. She's co-founder of the Money Panel and recent winner of the Financial Wellbeing Champion of the Year Professional Advisor category and Marketing Influencer of the Year 2022. So she is very well accoladed. She's been featured on so many media channels. It's overwhelming, but Radio 4, Women's Hour, Forbes, The Telegraph, The Times, The Independent, just a few small publications here in the UK. Clearly nothing too special to be seen here. She's co-author of an Amazon best-selling book, The Woman I'm Becoming, inspiring teenage girls as they approach life's challenges and crossroads, and author of the Amazon best-selling book in over 12 categories, which only came out, I think, a week ago. I hope she's going to tell us all about it, called It's Not About the Money. She's a bloody rock star, and I'm very, very excited to have her on the session today. Let's bring her into the call. There she is, the lovely Catherine Morgan. Welcome, darling. Oh, why can't I help you?
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. What a lovely introduction.
Oh, there you are. I can hear you. You're just
Can't hear me.
slightly delayed. Let's hope that corrects itself, because that's going to drive us completely nuts. Talk to me again. Oh my word. We've got a delay of about
I'll keep chatting and let's see.
20 seconds there. It's nuts.
Oh, hold on.
Let me see if I can bring you out and in
see.
again and see if that helps us at all.
I'm going to keep chatting and see whether we have a delay. Is that any better?
It's kind of like the bad...
Is that
Did
any
you ever
better?
get
I'm gonna
Monkey
keep
Magic over here? It was one of those really bad 80s movies that had bad dubbing. It's kind of like we're doing that version here. So Everything was totally fine before you guys came. So I'm just going to blame you all, right? We're chatting here quite happily with no delay. What I'm going to invite you to do, Catherine, is maybe duck out and come back in, and let's see if we can sort that out, because otherwise it really, really is not going to work. That's it. So if you exit yourself and see where we get to there. In the meantime, ladies, why don't we make this personalized? I want you to start thinking about your relationship to your money, what's going on for you financially at the moment, and where you might have anxieties, stresses, or concerns around money. If you've got anything along those sorts of lines, why not share them in the comment section, or what sorts of questions you might have for an exquisite expert such as Catherine. Now she's back in the green room. Let's give it another shot here. Catherine, let's see. Talk to me. Oh my God,
I'm
it's
scared
still
to talk
really
now.
bad.
Is it still wet?
Yeah, I don't know
no.
what's going on.
Let me switch my mic. Is that any better?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You're synced. Now you're saying words and I hear them at the same time. It's brilliant.
I think there's still a very slight delay, but I think it's no worse than being in Australia and being in the UK on Skype.
We can totally handle the tiny delay that it is. I think we're good. Yes, fantastic. We are women. We sort tech. That's all I'm saying. We rock. Woo! So, Catherine, first of all, a massive congratulations on your new best-selling book, It's Not About the Money. Great title. And I know that it has absolutely trounced so many books, becoming an Amazon bestseller in 12 categories. Was it just last week or was it the week before? I feel like it's very recent.
Yeah, so I turned 40 on Thursday and I sat there thinking, how can I avoid the fact I'm turning 40? I know, I'll launch my book on my birthday.
Wow, brilliant. I also noticed a few posts. I saw Sarah Price's post, you can't say no to someone on their birthday. So everyone's like wishing you a happy birthday and go buy the book. It was a genius strategy. I turned 45 in May. Maybe I should have on my 45th birthday, get our book out. What do you think? I'm going to totally steal that strategy.
I would love to say it was strategic, but actually it was supposed to be out in May, then it was July, then it was September, and then it was like, hell, I just need to get this book finished. And so then we just said, right, what's happening in December? Right, we'll just go with my birthday.
Oh, I love it. And you were saying before we got started here that you're getting some amazing feedback from people. It's making a real massive impact for people already by the sounds of things.
I think that's the thing, getting to bestseller in Amazon, okay, it's great. It's great to have, that kind of branding boost, if you like. But do you know what just means more than anything? It's when you start to get those little messages from people that say, I just read chapter 1 and my bully was called KT. And I've just read this question and it's really got me to reflect on, how I show up around money. And it's those kind of messages you start to get that really make the whole process all worthwhile.
Yeah. Oh, well done you. You're making such a huge impact. Now, I know one of the things that you talk about a lot, which I really want to understand better, is financial trauma. Because I think it's something that we don't even consider. Like if we think about, we might have had trauma in our lives. We might think about, abusive relationships or parents who are neglectful or, stuff like that. We kind of, when we think trauma, we think big nasties like that. But as soon as I read this, I thought, you know what? That is so true. We can go through these moments in relationship to money that can really scar us at a deep level. Why is it really important for us to understand this concept and to view money through that lens?
Yeah, and just as you said, Joe, I think we need to come at the conversation about money through a trauma-informed lens. And what I mean by that is that, as you said, most people think that traumas are the big nasty stuff, like abuse and war and significant events. And these are the big T's, the big traumas. But actually, trauma in reality is just any event that exceeds our complete capacity to feel like we can cope.
Yeah.
And so instead, it kind of creates this disruption in the way that we function, like emotionally and practically. And so when we think about money, we're not actually really thinking about money in the physical sense. We're actually thinking about what is that emotional feeling that we attach to money that then goes to create all of these meanings and perceptions around the beliefs that, quite frankly, we've just been passed on through generations. And that is how we then behave with money or not, is because of those borrowed beliefs and also the borrowed emotions attached to it. So a lot of people think when they want to have more money, oh, well, I'll just focus on the financial education. I just need to learn how to make more money, manage more money, grow more money. And actually, if we don't have any idea about our perceptions and emotional connection with money, then the financial education won't stick. You know, we can't actually digest the financial knowledge if we don't digest the emotional connection that we have with money. And so that financial trauma lens, if you like, just allows us to put on a completely different perspective on our relationship with money, which in essence is just a mirror reflection of the relationship that we have with ourselves.
That's so interesting to think about it, because I think, you know, through the work we do at One of Many, obviously we've got Be Wealth and so on, we look at people and their relationship to money, but it is an area that most of us ignore, right? We don't ever think I have a relationship with money. It's just I've either got money or I don't have money, do you know, or there's enough or there's not enough. We don't dig beneath the surface. We think that our financial challenges are just, you know, it's a cash flow issue, or I don't have a job at the moment, or they don't pay me enough, or I've got more than I know what to do with, I'm too scared to invest. You know, like we think about it in that surface level, but we don't actually look at this underneath and go, oh, I've got a relationship with this thing. So for those who do have financial trauma in their lives, or this collection of beliefs which are not serving them, how do you see that manifest most commonly in day-to-day life?
Yeah, Jen, the most interesting way I think it manifests is through our language and our physical reaction. So when I say the word money right now, like, there's going to be a whole bunch of you listening to this, like, oh God, no, not talking about money. Like, and then the shame comes out, the blame, the lack of responsibility, the carefree relationship, or maybe you're like great at making it, but then can't seem to get hold of it. You know, and so it kind of creates this emotional reaction physically in our body. And I think that's the first thing to pay attention to, is that where is that misalignment? You know, often we see that there's a misalignment between our behaviors and our thinking. And to get curious to this, like at a really simplistic level, we can just get curious to the language, the narratives that we're actually using with ourselves. And the best way to do this is just to have a conversation with somebody about money, maybe like record it, or just get curious to what are those I am statements that you're saying to yourself about money. For example, like, I am terrible at maths. I am crap at managing numbers. Like, I don't know anything about money. My partner looks after money. Or, you know, I am terrible at making financial decisions. These I am statements are a complete reflection of how we attach our sense of self to money, which, when you think about it, seems completely ludicrous and illogical. Like, how much money we have doesn't make us a better person, doesn't make us a greedy person. You know, if your belief is that rich people are greedy, for example, having money is not going to be a good thing for you if you believe that rich people are greedy, for example. And these I am statements are almost like a magnet. If you think of them like every time we say I am something, 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 that is literally like your magnet telling yourself something about money. And this is the first thing that I really want to get as many people recognizing, that we need to separate, like a magnet, our sense of self, who we are, from money, like away from money. Don't give away your power to a physical tool, a thing that we can just print more of when we run out of it. Like, the government can just print more money. Like, but yet we give so much of our power away to money. And I think that for all of us, just paying attention to, well, what are we actually saying about money and our sense of self? That I think is the first thing that everyone can do, is just to recognize and bring some awareness to their narratives, those stories that they're telling themselves about money.
That's a really good chat. I'm really interested, for those of you who are here, what are some of those? What do you say I am what? How do you relate to that? What sort of examples have you got? Because it'd be interesting to see if we can share some of these. I can see Virginie's just saying here, Catherine, in France, we don't even talk about it. We it's like, and Peggy underneath, who is also French, saying it's almost like it's unsavory to the French. She's got that it's like, there's so much shame, collective cultural shame around it. Patricia's saying, for me, it feels that bad things will happen to me when I make more money. I know it's illogical, but I feel a knot in my stomach when I think about making more money. Alison's saying, I say I'm good with money. So that's, a positive identification. But again, identifying ourselves in relationship to money, do we need to even, do that? What are the 5 biggest impacts, do you think, on our relationship with money? Where do these beliefs come from that may empower us or disempower us? How do we get them?
Yeah. So, who is the lady who just said, Virginia, was it? Who said about, like, in France, we just don't talk about money,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
So I live in a little island not far from you, in Jersey, the Channel Islands, and actually very similar over here. It's a really interesting culture actually over on this little 9 by 5 mile island that I now live on. And that's the first thing, right? Is that one of the biggest impacts that we have on our relationship with money is societal trauma, society's beliefs around money. And I was literally having a conversation 2 weeks ago with Anne Bowden, who is the CEO of Starling Bank. She's the first female CEO of any UK bank in the world. Like, she's incredible. And we were talking about the way that media talks to women about money versus men. And this is really interesting because from a society perspective, if you go all the way back through British culture, and I know this is something you talk about, Joe, is that unless you had land or title, like, you didn't hold any value in society. And so even though today society doesn't tell us this, it's still in our DNA. It's still in those belief patterns, those borrowed beliefs that we all carry from our parents' influence and generational patterns. So this society is one impact or influence, if you like, that has on our relationship with money. And that will depend on where you're brought up, which cultures you were brought up around, etc. And then we've got religion, so all the religious teachings we've grown up around, and that again can have a huge impact on our relationship with money. I remember coaching a lady a couple of years ago, actually from the One of Many community, and she grew up as a Mormon. And so her belief was that she had to contribute 15% of her income to the Mormons. And as she kind of grew her business, she felt that she had to, she was shoulded on. She was shoulded on.
Oh.
She had to contribute a percentage of her wealth to her communities. Am I still with you guys? I keep getting my screen keeps freezing.
Is your internet stable at your end? It's dropping in and out a little bit, but you're back now, so we should be fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So religion is another influence in that, religion will teach us different things about money. And then we've also got, like, generational beliefs. So the analogy I always like to give at this time of the year is, like, if you imagine that you're Father Christmas and you're walking down the street and over your shoulder you've got this gigantic sack. And inside that sack, you've got these little Christmas presents all wrapped up beautifully with a bow on the top. And inside those gifts, you've got these little messages, like a fortune cookie. And inside those gifts, there'll be a whole bunch of those gifts that will really support you. And there'll be a whole bunch of those gifts that won't support you because they're borrowed beliefs that are actually not even true. But yet we perceive them to be true because we've often learned them from the age of 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. And all the beliefs that we learn at that age are literally true. Like, our brain doesn't have the cognitive ability to determine whether it's true or false. And so it takes all of these beliefs, these borrowed beliefs and messages and stories, that this is how money is. Like, money doesn't grow on trees, or we have to work hard to make money. And so all these generational beliefs that have been carried over our shoulder all of these years, it's a really good time to think about which of those beliefs have served you and which of them are sabotaging you. So generational beliefs is the third one there. And then the final two, one is personal experiences, and the fourth one is financial literacy, or lack of, should I say. Personal experiences, things like divorce, trauma, grief, loss of a loved one, winning the lottery, inheriting money from parents, for example. These are personal experiences that then go on to create these stories, these narratives that we tell ourselves about our ability to hold on to wealth, to pass on wealth through the generations. And then financial literacy, we know that there's a massive lack of financial education. It's better than it was, but certainly we never went to school and taught, learn how to open a mortgage or open a bank account or manage our money through university, etc. So we have these kind of 5 big influences on our relationship with money: society, consumerism, religion, generational patterns, personal experiences, and financial education.
And they're pretty deep, right? As you were talking there, just about how society informs us. I mean, I grew up in Australia, where it's a far more entrepreneurial kind of country than here. When it comes to money, there's not, we don't have this haves and have nots kind of culture. But it's interesting when I notice it still every day for myself. I mean, I live in a very wealthy part of the country, in the Cotswolds here, and driving around here, some of the wealth that you see, it's pretty out of this world. And I am constantly up against this, I'm not as good as, I'm a very aware human. I'm very aware that this is not the truth. And I still feel it almost daily, that in that deep-seated societal thing that I'm not as good as X, who's got that massive house and that massive thing and has had money in their family for generations. I mean, I know it's not true, but the feelings, the shame, even just driving down someone's driveway to drop my kid off for a play date, or going, oh, what are they going to think when they come to the house that we've just bought compared to their house? Like that stuff, it's deep. And I know this stuff, right? It's funny, having the awareness around it isn't kind of enough. So I know I've just been chatting about how I can kind of see them for myself, but how does someone go about identifying these beliefs that they might discover?
Yeah, so before I share that, actually, Jo, just something you've just said there really resonated, because this just goes to show, doesn't it, that awareness is the first step. But even when we're aware of this stuff, like, what do we do with it? What do we do when we feel that in our gut or in our bellies or in our chest or, in our hands, or, it's very somatic. And this is where, if you look at some of the somatic methodologies that we can actually do, embodiment work, getting actually the emotions out of the body, when we feel it, we don't feel it to ignore it. We feel it to allow the emotion to just flow. It's what Brené Brown talks about, doesn't she, with the emotional tunnel? Like, we have to let the emotions flow. So, the first step is definitely awareness, but then we do need to do something with that feeling. Don't just sit in that feeling and feel stressed or depressed or anxious. We have to do something with that feeling. Which is why I love the work that you do in your communities, Jo, about, really encouraging women to dance it out, shake it out, ground themselves, in the grass. And, I've learned so many different techniques of embodiment work, of just being in the one of many community. And I think that's a really important part, because one of the things that I trained in earlier this year was called EFT, or tapping, which is all about getting the trauma away from the body in order that we can process some of this uncomfortable feeling. But remember that the uncomfortable feeling that we have isn't necessarily true. It could be linked to trauma, but it could just be linked to, it's okay to feel stress. It's okay to feel anxious about money. We shouldn't see it as a negative emotion. It's just emotion. We just need to allow that to kind of, and understand what's the message behind that emotion. When we feel that, oh God, this person's driving like a massive Range Rover and I'm stuck in a Fiesta. What is that meaning, or the message that sits underneath that perception for yourself? Because the fact that you have that perception for yourself is such a gift. We don't recognize our intuition is incredible, so incredible. And I don't think we acknowledge and express that enough, that that intuition muscle that's telling you, I don't feel comfortable to charge this in my business. Then don't charge that in your business. Don't compare yourself to what everybody else is doing. Stop all the shoulding. This is just about what feels right for you is the most important step that you can take today to feel better with your relationship with money. But just coming on to your question, Joe, so you asked about
How do we
borrowing.
identify those beliefs? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an exercise that I do with my clients, and it's called like a borrowed beliefs, like a family tree. Some of you may have done this before, actually. I would literally just grab a piece of paper and just like draw out your family tree and think about using some different symbols. So maybe use like circles for women and triangles for men or something like that, just to distinguish between men and women. And then I would just think about what are some of the borrowed beliefs that you may have experienced yourself or you may have heard. Maybe money was never talked about by particular people in your family. Like that in itself is a belief.
It's a belief, right? We shouldn't talk about it. Money's not to be talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember my dad. So my dad is an entrepreneur. He runs businesses in Australia, actually on the Gold Coast, and he used to come home from work and he would empty all his pockets of pound coins and put them all into this like ceramic flour jar. He would never do anything with the pennies, which was interesting, but he always saved the pounds, and then he put them into the back of his wardrobe. And so as a 6-year-old observing that, he never used to say anything. He would just like automatically empty his pockets. But the message that my 6-year-old self took from that was, oh, so you have to look after the pounds, not the pennies. And money has to be kept secret because it has to be tucked
Wow.
away.
Yeah. Wow.
And he never spoke about money. I could see he was wealthy from the cars that he drove and the house that he lived in, but he never talked about it. So, don't necessarily, when you're looking at your family tree, it doesn't have to be the messages, the specific like sayings or stories that were told, but what was not said about
Yeah.
money?
What was the
did you
behavior kind of
observe?
pointing towards?
Yeah. And what's really interesting is that if you look back at that family tree, first of all, it's a really great conversation to have at Christmas because if you've got grandparents coming over, like ask them, what did you learn from your parents about money? Start to build out that family tree. And what you'll find is you'll start to find some common threads that run through that, which might be, oh, so women were okay to bring money into the house, but not men, or probably vice versa. Men brought all the wealth in, women manage the household purse. And that's the belief that you've taken, and you're great and comfortable to manage the household purse. But when it comes to investing decisions, oh no, we can't do that. We'll pass that decision over to the men, you know? So it's just bringing some awareness to, well, which of the beliefs and behaviors that you have right now actually belong to you? And you'll probably find that as well as carried beliefs, there's some carried emotions in there, maybe some carried shame, carried guilt. Like when I did this with my mum about 2 years ago, my mum carried a huge amount of shame around her body. And when we actually tracked it back, her dad was in the Shanghai prisoner of war camps in the Second World War.
Wow.
He survived, like he came out weighing like 5.5 stone. And my nan always used to tell this story at Christmas time about how she cooked him rice pudding when he came out of the camps and he wouldn't touch it. And because he'd lived on rice for like
Yeah.
years in these camps, and he passed away when my mum was 12. He had a heart attack when they were on holiday. And obviously, he had a terrible relationship with his body because of all the trauma that he had suffered. And we literally, my mum and I, as we were talking through it, we were like questioning how much of the trauma that she's carried, the guilt and shame around her body confidence passed to her because of her dad's beliefs around food and body. And then how much of that actually carried through to me down the female line. And it was just really fascinating that it was this light bulb moment for me where I was like, actually, I wonder whether the trauma that I carried through all of my teenage years of lack of body confidence and eating disorders and all sorts of terrible money issues as a teenager were actually just carried emotions and carried beliefs. Just really a really powerful exercise, even if you don't know and are not able to access some of those stories from the past. Just see what curiosity you can bring to what's the common thread that may be present for you and your family that may actually just get you really thinking about, I'm really curious to how am I living out those beliefs that are actually serving me, and how are those beliefs really not serving me?
Oh my God, that sounds really, really powerful. I love that as an exercise to get curious about. It reminds me of something that I was reading just a day or two ago, and I completely forget where it was at the moment. But I've kind of instinctively understood this thing about inheriting emotions or inheriting beliefs, down the family line. Oh, that's right. It was an article about women, and it was a women and not putting their head above the parapet because, and this particular woman was making the case, she's a psychologist, making the case that it's because of the witch trials, right? And I
Oh, I
was like,
saw.
well, right, I can, like, at a spiritual level, I'm like, yep, get it. My doctor mind goes, yeah, but, and then I read like several research papers about, so the way that fears are passed down through generations. So they would scare the crap out of a rat or around something and associate it with a smell, and then 2 generations hence, without having had the trauma, the smell would cause massive fear in that grandkid of the rat, but not in, even though they weren't there at the initiating thing. And there was a number of studies like this showing this trauma response that we store clearly in our DNA, in our cells in some way.
Yeah, like because I'm very science based. I'm not particularly woo woo. I'm trying to step into the woo woo ness a bit more. But I like things that are embedded in science. And actually, if you look at the work of Dr. Bruce Lipton, who you may have come
Oh
across in
yeah, he's
Olympics, this is really about how we store traumas in our energetic field. We store it in the DNA of which we are, created. And that's the emotional stuff. When we feel something that, like, we just don't have any explanation to, well, why do I feel like this when I visit this certain town, or why do I feel like this when I'm in this certain situation? It may be because of the epigenetics of all this energy that has been literally passed through the generations. So that article you're referring to, which I was having a conversation with at the weekend with my friend, because she has these things that just happen where she feels this resistance to actually female friends. Like, she seems to have big fallouts all the time with female friends. And she actually did some epigenetics work and discovered that in one of her past lives, she was a witch in a well in Scotland.
Oof.
And when she went really deep into some of the somatic work, this kept coming up for her, and she's like, what the hell is all this? And then she discovered in her family tree that her father did some research last week and discovered that there's this history in her surname of witches being burnt on the stake in Scotland. And she was like,
whoa, mind blown,
oh,
right? And it was friends turning in friends, because that's what you would do to save your life. You'd go for your best mate. If it's a choice between you looking after your family or pointing the finger at your best mate to survive the stake, that's what you're going to do. It's yeah. Well, I feel like we're slightly on a sidetrack, but I think it's important conversation. There's been some amazing questions coming in to the chat channel here, Catherine. So I've got one more question for you, and then I want to take some of these questions that we've got here if we have a little bit more time. So we'll see where we go here, ladies. If you have any questions for Catherine, please pop them in the chat channel. But it's a time of year where we go a little bit nuts with spending. Not me, just everybody else. Not me at all. We absolutely did not look at spending nearly £1,000 on a freaking jungle gym for our kids in the garden of New House. No, that was some other person. We're having this moment. We're moving. There's no trampoline in the garden. We're like, there's no fort. We've got a fort and a trampoline in this place where we're renting. We're going to a garden with neither. Oh my God, Greg and I are like, and they just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. This thing we're looking at, we're like, what? Are we mad? Yes, clearly. So yeah, we do tend to get a little emotional with our spending at this time of year. What do we need to know about that? Can we rectify it? What can we do? Help.
I love that. I love the honesty. And you definitely have to get a trampoline in the garden. That's like the most needed thing for any kids is a trampoline. So yeah, this is a really interesting subject for me, because this is where my story started. Like, I was a massive emotional overspender. Like, I lived in £30,000 worth of recurring debt cycles in my 20s. As a financial advisor, you can imagine the guilt and the shame.
The shame.
Telling everyone what to do with their money, and then, oh my God, I'm stuck in debt cycles. So First of all, just acknowledge that overspending is only ever really an issue when, when it gets us into cycles where we literally cannot meet our own basic needs. Going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we're in a place of instability, then it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think other times overspending really it's about a couple of things. Excuse me. If you're in a situation where you're overspending and you're not able to meet your basic needs, then please don't ever sit in that situation. Like, there's so many amazing organizations like Step Change that can help you to kind of get out of that place of insecurity and into a place of security and stability. But for everybody else who just has a tendency to overspend from time to time, overspending can often be just a trauma response. Like, it's a trauma response which can often come from like self-medicating the pain away of something that's gone terribly wrong in our day, or or maybe we're overspending to celebrate. Like, it can be the opposite emotional response. And I think that's the first thing, is just to understand like what's going on. Like, are we just overspending because we feel like maybe we're going to be loved if we buy our kids bigger gifts this Christmas or more expensive gifts? It's okay to do things like that. We need to give ourselves permission to be able to spend without the guilt and the shame attached to it. But I think understanding the emotion, if you are a regular overspender and it's causing you some issues with maybe too much going on the credit cards and then your inability to pay them off, is just to really understand, well, what is the emotion at play here? Mm-hmm. What is it that we're maybe trying to like mask over, if you like, sellotape over? And often the easiest way to do this is just to pause. Like, there's so much magic in the pause.
Yes, yeah.
Isn't there, in every context? Like, so if, for example, my massive overspend in my 20s was clothes and Amazon, like, even worse now with the fact that you can get it delivered the same friggin' day, So the first thing is just to pause. Like, if you're about to go through checkout, just pause and think, okay, do I really need this? Or do I want this? Is it sitting on my needs list or sitting on my wants list? And we have a little chart in our kitchen. And the boys, like, I've got 2 boys aged 8 and 10. The boys contribute regularly to their needs and wants list. Like, is it a need? Is it a want? Is this PlayStation an absolute basic requirement? No, it will go on the wants list. It's a wants or a need. So I think getting clear on that is super helpful. But then celebrate the hell out of yourself. If you don't take that to checkout, maybe give yourself like 48 hours before you go back and really ask yourself that question when you're not in that emotional flooding state, which, by the way, is just a chemical reaction that's going on in the brain. The brain is looking for that dopamine hit. And for some people, it will be foods, opening the fridge, just grabbing that extra little bit of chocolate again. Some people, it will be alcohol. Some people, it will be shopping, So it's understanding, well, what's the trigger? What is the emotional sellotape? What are we trying to create by making that overspend purchase? Because if we're trying to make ourselves feel better, it's only going to be short-lived. So there's going to be an emotion under there some way that can be better met in another way. Go and make a nice hot bubble bath for yourself, or go and ring a friend, or go and find something on Netflix to watch. Something that's just going to distract you from that pattern. But time is a great one.
I love just that. The pause, the power of that pause. That's amazing. Thank you, darling. I know we're at the 45-minute mark, but there have been some lovely questions, so I thought maybe we could just take 2 or 3 minutes to answer 1 or 2 if that works for you. So there's an interesting kind of series of questions here from Jenny. So there's, and perhaps I'll put them all out. So Jenny's sort of saying, well, when is enough when it comes to wealth creation? And perhaps there's a bit of a telling thing here. Does it start with stopping envy, not giving higher or lower relative power to anyone, being truly content with oneself? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, Jo, there's actually a chapter in my book that's called like enoughness, the levels of enoughness. And so when is enough enough? I think the first thing to do is to answer that question. How will you know when you have enough wealth? How will you know when you have enough money? And this is particularly prevalent right now in the online space, where we've got a whole bunch of people talking about let's get you to 6 figures, 7 figures, 6 figures a month, in revenue. And then everyone's like, oh, so if I'm not making that, does that mean that I'm not good enough? Again, because we're attaching our sense of self to money. So when is enough enough depends very much on, well, how will you know when you have enough? It's a feeling and it's a practical thing. We need to have enough money to live the lives that we want to live and to be able to maybe pass down wealth to generations, or maybe not. Maybe that's something that you don't believe should happen for your generations. But enough is very much a feeling. It's that emotional feeling of feeling that you are safe, secure, stable, and confident with wealth. And I always say to people, go with the feeling first. Identify how will you know when you have enough emotionally, and then think about, well, how will I know practically that I have enough money? And that's where maybe working with a financial planner, for example, is super useful, particularly at like pre-retirement age. I'm a big believer in getting advice pre-retirement age, but up until that point, you can do everything yourself, But that state of enoughness is an emotional state, and then a practical state of, do I actually have enough money to last me the rest of my life?
That's a really good question to ask oneself, isn't it? And it's not a simple answer, but it's a question we all have to, it's personal, right? It's going to be very, very personal. And then the final question here, which I think is a very important one, and it's my challenge to you to finish, is from Virginie, who says, I couldn't find more than 2 books about personal finance in the Paris Public Library, and they were not recent books. Nobody writes about it in France, and the well-known books from abroad are rarely translated. So my question for you, Catherine, is how soon until the French translation of It's Not About the Money comes out?
I have no flipping idea how that works, but I'm going to go and find out, and I will come back to you, Virginia. You will have, if I get it in French, you will be the first person to get a copy, I can promise you.
Yes. And this is it, right? And that points to the cultural thing. I think in different cultures, it's different. We talk about it differently. I know in the States, way more talked about than in Australia or the UK, because I've got experience in all 3 of those cultures, and we're all very, very different. I don't know about French culture, but it is important for us to be aware of that. Ladies, thank you all so much for being here today. Let me know in the comment section as we're wrapping up what your big takeaways are from Catherine's session today. I want to hear what you're grateful for, what you're going to be applying, what you're going to be doing. What is your takeaway from the session today in the comment section? And Catherine, if we want to get ourselves a copy of the book and keep in contact with you, how can we do that?
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Yeah, if you just head over to itsnotaboutthemoney.co.uk, you can grab a copy of the book, this one here.
Look at that. I love it. Brilliant.
Thank
We
you.
will. We absolutely will. Excellent. Love it. And what's your website as well? What's your web address? Or can we follow you on social media, those sorts of things?
Yeah, website is catherinemorgan.com. And yeah, pretty much on all the socials. So whatever platforms you're on, come find me. Catherine Morgan Money. I'm on Instagram. Just Catherine Morgan everywhere, really.
Brilliant. I love it. And lots of people going to be very active with this. Gemma is saying, can I please get a signed copy for my birthday? Is it your birthday today, Gemma? If it is, happy birthday. Virginia's saying, I'm going to work on the feelings from today. So that's her takeaway from today, which is great. Peggy is saying, definitely need to work on my mindset. Alison says, I'm not going to say I am, but that I manage money well. I love it. That's a great distinguishing of the identity from the behavior. And Sharon, hello, lovely Sharon, says, you remind me about my dad and his not knowing about pound coins. Speaks to how little attention he paid to it. Interesting. Fantastic. And Perrin is endorsing the fact that it could be a really great Christmas present for friends and family to get It's Not About the Money. Absolutely. Catherine, it has been an absolute pleasure having you today. Thank you so much for taking some time to come and chat to us about money, especially as we head into the silly season. I wish you and all your little tribe there a fabulous festive season. I hope you enjoy each other's company. And to everybody who's watching today, massive best wishes to you. Next week, we're going to be talking about survival strategies for the silly season. how to, it's this funny time of year where we end up in small confines with a bunch of people who, for better or for worse, gave birth to us, brought us up, are extended family. Some of them we gave birth to, many of them who drive us actually crazy, but at this time of year, we're expected to spend time with them and all be on our best behavior, celebrate and coordinate some of the most stressful days of our lives in an average year. And we expect ourselves to be able to do that with aplomb and not trip into our old family patterns. It's a big expectation. So we're going to talk in next week's Lunch and Learn Live about how to survive it. My holiday survival tips session of Lunch and Learn. So chime in for that one. If this has been useful for you today, please do tag a friend in the comments section, share it to your page, tell your mates about it. And if next week sounds interesting, make sure you're there live and you invite your friends as well. Once again, Catherine, thanks heaps for being here, my love.
Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to be joining that Lunch and Learn because I'm definitely going to need some of that myself. Jo,
that time of year, baby.
I just say super quick, just another massive thank you to you, what you've created, your team and your community, because honestly, if it wasn't for the work that I've done through Leader Change and all your transformational programs, I can't wait to be on the face-to-face retreat next year. To finish my 4, I honestly would never have written this book. So just a massive, massive emotional thank you from me to you, because honestly, yes, I can't thank you enough.
Darling, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much that means. It's just an honor and a privilege to hold space while brilliant women like yourself come and step into their brilliance and share it with the world. You're a bloody rock star. Thank you. All right, darlings. Lots of love. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great day.